Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle. Be joined by my co-host, Michael Reed, here very, very soon. Hall will not be joining us for this episode. He has a fantasy draft going on at the moment. The title of today's episode is The Giant Introduction. And to be able to help us bring in week one, which is a week away from today, is old friend of the show, Mr. Lake Lewis, NFL Insider. Thank you for blessing me on this Sunday afternoon, sir. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. How you been? It's been a while.
It has been a while, and I really appreciate your background there at the pool. You got the shades on and perfect weather for a little thin hoodie. You know, I can respect that as a hoodie man myself alongside of Jaden Daniels. But, Lake, we have to get into this matchup coming up. And one thing I've been screaming about all summer was in regards to Terry McLaurin and making sure that this team can hit the ground running come week one against the Giants. Do you feel that Terry McLaurin and company are going to be able to hit the ground running by week one with him just getting back into the mix last week?
Yeah, I absolutely do. I mean, you have to think that they were working out all off season,
Right.
and OTAs, so yeah, he missed 3 weeks of camp, but when you're an elite athlete, you stay ready, you stay in shape. Obviously, there's a difference between just being walking around shape and football shape. And I think that that's something that he could make up in 2 weeks, So I do expect for Terry to come out, start, obviously, and still make an impact on the Giants game. And the good part about it also is, Kyle, is that when you have, now Deebo Samuel, something Terry's never really had in his career is another alpha on the other side.
Yep.
It's going to open up things where you don't have to lean on him and have him carry you, at least not in this first week, as much as you would in years past, because there's more depth and more offensive fireworks that'll be displayed from some other players.
In Lake, I was we had a church meetup last night watching the Clemson LSU game, and they were kind of asking me about week one with the Giants. And so I want to ask you the question that was asked to me, because in my opinion, one of the big question marks regarding the Giants is we don't know what their offense is going to look like with Russell Wilson at the helm, right? With Daniel Jones, you kind of had a feel for it. But what kind of issues do you think the Giants offense brings with Russell Wilson being there and obviously Malik Neighbors?
Well, I mean, I think it'll be better for Malik Neighbors to have, a quarterback that can throw a deep ball, that can do some things with his own legs to open up the offense even more. But let's be honest, the Giants offensively are still going to be, they're still devoid of some talent that they need to really take that next step. And I think for them, naturally, they're going to depend on their defense and lean on that defense to kind of help them stay within striking distance in games where, a veteran like Russell Wilson can make a play. But I mean, you look at the backfield with Tyrone Stacy and some of those guys. I don't think anyone's going to walk into a game against the New York Giants and feel like they're afraid of their offense. But you still have to line up and you still have to play football. So if you're Washington, you can't take that team for granted. We remember what happened last week in week one. Washington had to win it on, 7 Austin Cyber field goals. I mean, franchise record. I don't think that's going to be the case Sunday, but I do think it's going to be a traditional NFC East football game where maybe Washington pulls away in the fourth quarter, but it's going to be a tough football game.
Absolutely. And speaking of the Giants defense, obviously their front seven, they're well equipped. They've added Abdul Carter in the offseason. They got the very good defensive tackle rotation that they do have. How confident are you in the offensive line? And off of that, do you think Connerly is going to start, or is it going to be similar to like a rotation that we saw with Brandon Coleman last year?
Well, me personally, I think Josh is going to start. I think he's going to be the opening day starter at right tackle. They haven't said anything, to dispel that, but they haven't said it either.
Right.
That it could be Andrew Wiley. Personally, I think what happens is Andrew Wiley's going to move inside and be the right guard, starting right guard, until Sam Cosmi comes back, and I'm predicting that'll be week 5 of the season. So I just think Josh Connerly's gotten better every practice, every day, and not just better, but I mean, like, you see why he was a first round draft pick. And first round draft picks normally start. And if, they've proven throughout camp and preseason that they're worthy of being a starter as a first round draft pick, you start them. So I think he will start.
And what about Jaylin Lane? Do you find that he's going to be utilized in the offense early on in the season, or do you think they're going to more so massage him in to lineup down the road?
He's going to be out there day one. He's their third receiver. Make no mistake about that. I know Noah Brown has the experience, but Noah's a guy that you can have back up, Terry on the outside or something like that. I just think that obviously a guy like Kendrick Bourne will be visiting, and I predicted early last week, that I think he's going to end up in Washington. I know San Fran gets first dibs at him. He's going to go out there and meet with them, but I think another veteran like that, Kyle, could really help the receiver room. He's not going to come in and demand 70 catches or anything like that, but it's another veteran body that knows how to be a pro. As you grow with the Jaylin Lane, I think Jaylin Lane is so dynamic. I personally think that he is. I've been calling him Baby Debo. Like Debo Jr. because you can move him all around and do so many different things with him that I think that they're gonna throw him out there and let him play.
Yeah, we definitely saw that against Cincinnati in the preseason where they lined him up outside, and he looked phenomenal out there. He looks like he's ready to play, to your credit, all over the field. And now we are joined by co-host Reed. Do you have a question for Lake?
Yeah, I don't know what's already been asked, but I'm going to put one out there that I guarantee Kyle did because he doesn't have a mind like we do, Lake. But what's the vibe in the locker room right now? I mean, Brandon Coleman hasn't necessarily played a lot of snaps this preseason. He's going to a new position, but he seems to be gelling really well with Laramie Tunsil, at least according to a new podcast clip that came out. What are the vibes like there? Do you think that this offensive line expects to be more improved than last year?
Oh yeah, I mean the vibe in the locker room's great. I think everyone's excited. First and foremost, Terry's back. You get your leader back, and that changes everything. And it takes you from being a hopeful playoff team to a Super Bowl contender, and that's what they always thought they were. So then the other aspect of it is that with Brandon moving into guard, he played guard at TCU for a while.
Yep.
Before his final year where he left tackle. So I think he feels more at home. I think, he works better in space, in a tight window where he can move around with his athleticism. So I think in that little window as a guard, you're going to be able to see him put his hands on guys, and his footwork will look a lot better. And then, of course, he's playing it, both sides of him. I think Tyler Biadasz, the center this year, has a chance to be a Pro Bowl center. And, of course, Laramie Tunsil is a 5-time Pro Bowler. So if you're Brandon, you're in heaven right now. You're not out on an island by yourself. You're in the middle of the trenches, and you can do some things. I think this offensive line has a chance by the end of the year when it's all said and done. I think this offensive line has a legitimate chance to be considered a top 5 unit in the NFL. Naturally, the Eagles, the Lions have the cream of the crop as far as those lines.
Yeah.
But there's no reason for me to believe that if Sam comes back and makes the impact that we think he'll have by week 5, man, Josh Connolly, you even have depth, quality depth. So, yeah, I think this offensive line has a chance to be a top 5 unit.
And obviously, with the departure of Brian Robinson, even fantasy drafts, they're trying to gauge how the running back room is going to shape out, Lake. But based on, I know it's hard for you to kind of see in training camp and in practice because there's so much going on. But how do you see the snaps being divulged when it comes to the Giants week 1? Is it going to be a healthy amount of Eckler? You're going to see a sprinkle of Bill, or do you think that Bill's going to be getting a big portion?
I think it's going to be all 4 backs are going to touch the football. I think now there is no number 1 back. I mean, Austin's going to be the guy who probably will be out there for the first snap, but does that mean he's the starter? I think ultimately by week 7, week 8, maybe as late as week 9, I think Bill's going to be the guy. But I think in the interim, you're going to see a heavy dose of all of those guys because they all bring something to the table. They all do something well. And Chris Rodriguez, don't forget about him. He's worked him on this roster willingly, and he's worked hard. He's reshaped his body. So he might be your short yardage guy. I think Jeremy's more of the backup to Austin as far as pass catching type back out the backfield. And then I think Chris and Bill are going to be the guys that are going to be kind of your 1-2 punch, in between the tackles when it's time to just clearly run the football and the other team knows you're running the football down their throat. Those are going to be the 2 guys.
So how do you feel about Colson Yankoff? What kind of a role do you think he's going to play? I know obviously Bates has his role. We know Ertz, Ben Sinnott, and Colson Yankoff. They kind of bring something that I would imagine a little bit different, but it seems like Yankoff has shown more, at least during the preseason.
Yeah,
But how do you think that they're going to use him?
yeah, that's a great point, and I do. I think Colson's ascended beyond Ben right now.
Mm.
You know, higher draft pick, we know that, but I think Colson has done a lot of really good things. I mean, he still has some things he's got to work on as well, but I think Colson is a big guy that proves to you that he can catch the football as well. But he's more physical than Ben is right now. He's a guy that can block. Naturally, you don't need anyone to block when you have the best blocking tight end in the NFL and John Bates on your roster. And then Zach, the old man, is still out there catching passes, and that's Jaden's security blanket. I think Colson's a guy that you may see get some reps on Sunday, maybe 4 or 5 reps out there, and they play drawn up for him to surprise the Giants defense.
Absolutely. Now to wrap this up, Lake, only a couple more questions for you. But obviously in contrast to last year and this year, Von Miller, obviously a lot of the people in the fan base were clamoring for an edge rusher to be either drafted or a high value guy in free agency to be added. And they waited and got Von Miller. What is your expectations for this defensive line group after seeing what they've done in camp?
Man, I think this defensive line is going to be really good. I mean, they went out and got a certain type of player. They got guys that are really good against the run. And obviously that was their Achilles heel last year. They were giving up those big runs to Saquon and other guys. But I think, Vaughn is one of those guys that he hasn't shown you a whole lot in camp, because he's a veteran and he knows when to turn it on and off. So I've been telling people he's going around the edge, bending the edge, looking really good on reserve. So now come Sunday, you're going to pull, first ballot Hall of Famer, Von Miller. And I think it just adds to this defensive line. Dedrick Wise, you have, the guy that I think might have one of the biggest seasons on defense, period, in Javon Kinlaw. I think you're going to really like what you see from him, in a full 60, minute span. You're going to see a monster out there. So, Eddie Goldman, another veteran that can, stuff the run. So you pair those guys with Johnny Newton, with Deron Payne. Another guy to keep your eye on, too, from an edge rusher standpoint is Jacob Martin. Number 55 is going to be a pleasant surprise for a lot of people. So I think this defensive line has a chance to be, if not their best unit overall, it has a chance to be their second best unit. It's all said and done.
Yeah, Jacob Martin nearly had that sack in the preseason game that got called back for the horse collar, which is probably just a really bad call altogether. But, it's neither here nor there. Now, Lake, in regards to week 1, what is one area of the game that Washington has to be successful in order to put them in a very good position to win?
I think running the football. I mean, naturally, when you go up against a defense that wants to put pressure on the quarterback, you want to be able to run the football because it puts them on their heels. They can't just pin their ears back and make a rush towards Jaden. It kind of takes them out of their comfort zone. So if Washington can establish the run early, it's just going to pick apart the Giants' defense because their secondary is still a little suspect, in my opinion. They've got that pretty dynamic front seven, but, with Jaden being, uber talented and multifaceted, he can do whatever he wants out there. So if you run the football, it's going to put the Giants in harm's way, and then it could be a long day for their defense.
And last one I have for you, the kicking game. How 0 to 10? How confident are you in the kicking game, Lake?
I'm probably at about a 6. Truthfully, I think Matt's got a lot to prove. He's got to. I mean, they gave him guaranteed money to come here, man. He's got to make some kicks, and I'll say this: if he struggles in week 1, you're going to probably see them make a call to someone that was on the roster last year. I think Austin's still out there. Last time I looked, Zane was out there. I think he may have been scooped up by Buffalo over the last couple of days. But regardless, Matt Gay's got to make some kicks. And I know that the thinking in the building is that they're not going to be in position to be kicking a lot of field goals because they want him to do more kicking extra points because they're scoring. But you still need that guy to produce, and he hasn't, to the clip of where you want someone to be entering week 1. But it's almost there. I think he'll be fine, but he better get the act together for week 1.
Real quick, last one I have for you, I promise. One player, I'm not sure if you talked about him yet, but one player that really impressed you the most in training camp and to expect a lot of production out of, besides Jaden?
Man, there's been so many guys. I've really been impressed with Jaylin Lane. Ironically, I think he's had one of the top 5 camps, so I'm expecting him to do some great things. Um, Trey Amos. Trey Amos looks like a star in the making at corner. So I think people are going to be pleasantly surprised with him. And then probably I would say the final guy would be Quan Martin. I think Quan Martin has Pro Bowl in his resume coming, and I think it starts this year. So yeah, they have several other guys that you can say, but this team's got a group of guys that all are deserving. But yeah, those guys I just mentioned, I think look out for them.
My man. Lake, I can't thank you enough for taking some time out for us. Before we get out of here, I'd like to plug your social media handle and your show, just in case anybody watching hasn't followed you yet, but I'm sure that they have.
Sure, you can check me out on social media, Lake Lewis Jr. on all formats. You can check out my show, the Lake Lewis Jr. Show. You can watch it on YouTube. You can listen to it on Radio 1 in DC. And then also you can subscribe to it on any of the major podcast carriers. You can check me out on CBS 6 in Richmond as an insider for them. ABC in DC as an insider for those guys. And you can look at some of my articles I'm writing for Sports, which is NFL coverage there.
You're like the Pedro Pascal of this community. You're everywhere. You're in everything now.
Work for this. Keep it coming.
My man. Lake, have a great Sunday, sir. Enjoy the pool, brother.
I appreciate you guys. Take care now.
Thank you, man. Have a good one. All right, everybody. We just spoke with the man, Mr. Lake Lewis. Reed, it's a pleasure, sir. How you doing?
Kyle, you want me to be honest? No, I'm just going.
Yeah, and obviously we have our fantasy draft for the Burgundy Zone Alpha League going to be going on tomorrow. I'm sorry I had to change up that time on you guys, of course. But any comments you have on some of what Lake had said?
No, just I'm very excited. I think him saying that he thinks that the defensive line could be possibly the second best unit of the defense is that's saying something, because you got 2 All-Pro linebackers, you got a secondary that's supposed to be very, very good. So if the D-line can catch up with that, that's impressive.
Absolutely, and obviously we know that they use Frankie Louvu to come in as a blitzing kind of formation, and so if that defensive line group is performing well, they're able to limit the run, they're really going to cause issues for the Giants, and that's going to be a fantastic matchup for Washington, because I've said it for a while that with the Giants, they go as far as their offensive line does, and obviously they got Andrew Thomas back, but based on what we have on defense, if we're able to create a lot of pressure on Russell, he's not as nimble as he once was in his Seattle days, of course, but we saw what he could do to us last year. But thankfully for us, we don't have Benjamin St-Juste still on the roster. But to wrap this up, let's answer some fan questions that were submitted. This first one was by the Colonel, and the question for you, Reed. Russell Wilson is 4-1 with the Seahawks, Broncos, and Steelers against Washington in the last 5 games, with a passer rating of 89.7, 1,168 yards, 11 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. This included a heartbreaking last-minute loss to the Steelers, 28-27 last season. Why should we be optimistic things will turn out differently in our season opener?
Yeah, I mean that is a pretty good question. He has performed well against us, but he's still an aging Russell Wilson who's played on, what is this now, his 4th team in the last 5 years or something like that. Like when he was with the Broncos, they had some fantastic weapons. When he was with the Steelers, they had some fantastic weapons. With the Giants, they have Malik Neighbors, obviously. That Neighbors is a stud. He's going to be one of the best, if not the best, wide receivers in the NFL within the next few years for sure. But other than that, I mean, Russell Wilson doesn't scare me. He's not going to have success against us. That dude's such a dweeb.
Well, I think what the Colonel is highlighting is that he has been very successful.
He's killed us. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Against Washington. The one reason to be optimistic is the changes, and I would say specifically to the secondary. I think that's probably the most important part of this. I know Dan Quinn had just talked to, I forget who he did the interview with, But he said that Quan Martin, like he's expecting like an all-pro type of year from Quan and making that sort of leap. And that's just from the safety position. But having that cap over the top is going to be massively important for containing Malik Neighbors. Because that's the one issue is Russell kind of showed you last season. He does throw a rainbow, but dang is it accurate, man. He floats that ball into a perfect spot. And Malik Neighbors is going to come down with that football. But I think our secondary, I know Lake didn't even bring up Marshawn Lattimore, but he has looked a lot better in this camp than he did at the end of last year. And obviously these game we haven't seen him in game time action, so to speak. But I think that overall, with adding of Trey Amos, moving Mikey back inside, Quan Martin and Harris, I think that we're going to really restrict what the Giants can do vertically, which is going to force them to go horizontal. And that's just a recipe for success with a guy like Mikey operating in the middle of the field, being able to jump on balls. And that's going to be the biggest, kind of like Reed, that's going to be the biggest point of emphasis for Washington in the turnover margin. Dan Quinn talked about it in his presser. It's taking a possession away from the other team. And that's ultimately in the NFC East kind of games, that's what you need. And we saw that against Philly in the NFC Championship game. You give away the football and fumbles or interceptions, which didn't happen with Jaden, but the fumbles is what really tilts the scales in terms of when it coming down winning football. And so I will say that secondary unit is why you should be optimistic, because even when in those preseason games against Cincinnati, when we had Joe Burrow running for his life, everyone was talking about how good the D-line did on that play. But what doesn't get talked about was the fact that that was a coverage sack. Nothing was open downfield, so Joe had to scramble, try to make something happen. Nothing was wide open downfield like we've seen past like 4 years before, like 4 years ago. That was a known thing all the time. Somebody was always wide open. That's not the case now. So if I'm going to be optimistic about anything, it's that secondary. And also the offensive line. I know Cincinnati defensively is not very good, but our offensive line, just the identity of it and what we saw against Cincinnati, it seems like that power run game is very, very evident. And they're going to be bringing it this year. And that's something to really take into consideration, because Dexter Lawrence is massive in the middle. Absolutely. But let's see how he moves horizontally to the sideline on those pool games.
Right. And their defensive line, I think that they have one of the best defensive lines in the NFL. A lot of people do. I'm higher on them than a lot of people, just because the versatility that they should have in their pass rush, and then having Dexter Lawrence. But but then on the flip side, our offensive line should be much improved, like you talked about. But back to the secondary thing, I know, like we talked about, it was kind of disappointing. A lot of people were disappointed in the edge rusher situation. We all thought we were going to grab one early in the draft or trade for somebody, sign somebody. That didn't happen. But it's interesting, in today's NFL, in the passing league, you can scheme up pressure. You can scheme up pressures, and if you have the way that you can do that is with good corners, if they can cover their guys. We've got some good corners. We think that we do. So we have so much talent, so much versatility, so many different types of players. And you just got to rely on Joe Witt and Dan Quinn to be creative enough to bring that home. And those are the perfect guys to do it, Kyle.
No, you're absolutely right. Because if you do have an issue with covering passing downs, basically the offense is going to be able to run the ball down your throat, because you have to put more guys in the back end to be able to solidify.
You're always talking about stuff going down your throat
and capping the back end of the defense, right? Well, if you have a lot of confidence in your secondary members to strap up in one-on-one in man coverage, then you have more pieces to utilize in pressure against the run to say, I'm very confident that they're going to be able to strap up the wide receivers. If this is a pass play, let's send more at them. And let's see how they do being able to block, because pressuring the quarterback is obviously rule number one. Now, the next question that we have, this one was by the Colonel that he submitted through a text message. A few episodes back, a listener questioned what position group you were most concerned about. Kyle responded, the wide receiver group. Do you still feel that way after re-signing Terry, or do you think that there's still a lack of depth in our receiving room?
So that does relieve some. And look, I know that you could say Terry hasn't practiced, Terry hasn't been out there, but Terry's a veteran. He knows the offense. He's a smart guy. He has chemistry with Jaden Daniels. They were working on stuff, and you add Terry to that, all of a sudden you got a pretty exciting wide receiver. And now I think that the biggest question mark, your O-line looks solid. I think you got a good combination of tight ends. Blake talked about the defense with the defensive line and the linebackers and the secondary. Honestly, and look, I know everybody's been hyping them up. we don't know what we have at running back yet, just because nobody's really emerged. I mean, Krosky Merritt hasn't taken a regular season snap yet. We think that he's going to be pretty good. We think that he's going to be used, and we like the rotation of guys that they have. We know Eckler's a stud if he can, when he's healthy. But I would say running back now is probably my biggest concern. But there are four guys that you can get the job done, and just Jaden's threat of his legs, like the running game is going to be good. So it's kind of just like we're going 17-0 and going to the Super Bowl, you know?
Yeah, no, I'm not concerned about it anymore, Colonel. Terry was objective number one for me. It was all off season at being able to bring him back here, and obviously he's happy. There's no reason for anybody to be dunked on. Look, I had to learn that myself because I went on my own dunking spree, but I was pissed off. I had people telling me Terry had literally no leverage. He had to play on the last year of his deal with very limited amount of guaranteed money. I was saying, you're full of it, and that's what I was dunking on. But I am very happy with what we have in the wide receiver room. Having Terry on the outside, having less eyes on Jaden with adding of Debo Samuel, of operating with Noah Brown and obviously Jaylin Lane as well. That's a group that you feel very confident in and what they're able to bring. And Terry is really the cherry on top that it allows everybody to be able to work on themselves one-on-ones to win their matchups one-on-one. And when you have that recipe, that's a recipe for success when you have a quarterback like Jaden Daniels. If the defense wants to run zone coverage against you, good luck to you because Jaden can now find the holes and be able to run up on you. If you want to play man coverage, now we trust Debo. We trust Noah with the pass interference king and Terry to win their matchups. And you have to pick your poison, so to speak, as a defense. And so adding Terry in there was just another. I remember you saying this to Anthony Armstrong, the jewel for Thanos's hand or
The
whatever.
Infinity Gauntlet.
The Infinity Stone. Like Terry was that
Yeah.
Infinity Stone, and now we're powered up and ready to go.
Yeah.
So I'm not as much very concerned about the wide receiver unit. I'm much more so concerned about the health of the offensive line. Just obviously, I feel very confident what we have in the offensive line, but maintaining that health is going to be objective number one for this football team. Because if you're able to run the ball at an effective rate, taking the weight off Jaden and using the play action to your benefit, this offense is going to be unstoppable if the running game can do what they want.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I mean, usually it would be like we would have a pretty good team at like most positions we'd feel pretty confident about, but then it would be like we would have like Taylor Heineke at quarterback. But now it's like you got like pretty solid units all the way around, and then it's like you got a stud like the next face of the NFL in Jaden. So it's like you like your chances every week. We should be winning regularly.
Yeah, and
So
obviously
weird.
it all
What the
starts
hell?
it all starts and ends with Jaden, of course. It's
I
just
keep I keep expecting to wake up, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, Rex Grossman's starting. And you're like, fuck. God damn it.
Now, last question from the Colonel. Our defense was not only on defense and special teams were not only unimpressive in all phases during preseason, they were a liability. What, if any, changes or tweaks do you anticipate take place in practice before opening day in 1 week?
What were the position groups that cut out when you said that?
Defense and special teams.
That they looked bad during the
Yeah.
preseason? I mean, I thought against the Bengals that they looked pretty good. I mean, but depth is always a concern. I don't put much weight into the preseason. I think you got your guys. The main thing is just staying healthy because you know who the best guys are. You know who the guys are that you want to see on the field. You know that this coaching staff is very good at not making guys fit to their system, but instead finding a player's niche, whatever, however the hell you say it. I'm not an intellectual, Kyle.
Tomato,
And
tomato.
yeah, that's what I always say. And then working them in and kind of playing off of their strengths. So I'm not terribly worried. I do think that with a lot of these new guys, especially on the defensive line, you just want them to get more repetitions together and stuff. You want them to kind of play more together. But then you got two guys behind them that are absolute studs, veterans that have been around the block and have seen everything. And Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu. And then you had Marshawn Lattimore on the outside, who's a vet, who's a Pro Bowler. Like you got to feel pretty confident. And maybe this is just the crystal meth talking. But Kyle, I don't see any weaknesses at all on this team. We're going 17-0.
Don't say that. Don't jinx us. Knock on wood, please.
Injuries is always the biggest thing, by the way. I will say that.
Yeah,
You never know. Somebody's going to get hurt. It sucks.
in regards to the defense, Colonel, I don't see any tweaks happening because we do have to take into consideration defensively that we didn't see all 11 starters out there at all throughout the preseason, right? Like they made sure that they hid them. And I talked about this last week with Washington going against the Giants week 1, obviously on Sunday next week. But then they go against the Packers on Thursday, which is right after that. So it's smart to not play those guys a lot during the preseason, have them go to the gauntlet on Sunday. So that way, that's the beautiful thing about having that Thursday night game early in the season is it's not something you're going to be concerned about halfway through or in the back end of the season where you're already beat up. You don't have much time to be able to get your health in order, right? Where this is why you let those guys rest now because they're going to be going through the gauntlet come week 1 and week 2. So I'm not going to say the tweaks are going to happen on defensively. I do think special teams, especially on kickoff, the tweaks do need to happen. You did see guys running out of their gaps of their responsibilities, which opened things up for Travion Henderson against the Patriots. And it just seemed like that was kind of an issue. And I don't know if they were kind of experimenting with different guys playing on
Like
kickoff.
you do.
But I do expect that with Tyler Owens, Jeremy Reeves, with Nick Bellore, that they're going to be able to fix the issues that they had on kickoff in particular. And I do wonder, defensively, I do think that we're going to be able to see some more pressure being generated, and not only just based on passing downs, but rushing downs, being able to attribute more blitzers to be able to stop running plays in particular because of the confidence they have in the back end and being able to have strap city, so to speak.
Yeah. And speaking of tweaks, I missed that part. Missed talking about that. Obviously, preseason stuff, it's very vanilla. We also didn't see Von Miller, his pass rush specialist. Say what you want about his age. He's a Hall of Famer, and he had a very good year last year in terms of like his pressure percentage and beating blocks and stuff. He still can be effective. So like I'm excited to see after the first couple of weeks. I think we'll get a better sense of what they need to tweak. But right now, on paper, is looking pretty good.
Yep. And now this next question from Tony Franchise on Twitter, who DM'd us. Thank you, Tony. He's in our fantasy football league drafting tomorrow. This question is, Reed, what is your prediction for Jaden Daniels' stat line for the season?
This is tough because I'm going to say Jaden will throw for. I want to say just under 4,000 yards, maybe like 38, 39,000. 3,900, not 39,000. That would be crazy if he threw for 39,000 yards.
39,000.
Yeah, he just threw the football around the world. Yeah, uh, I'm gonna say he's gonna break 30 touchdowns. I'm gonna say the interceptions, he threw 9 last year as a rookie. He's always been historically careful with the ball. I'm gonna say Jaden's gonna throw 6 interceptions, and I'd say Jaden's also gonna have about 800 rushing yards. And I think that when we pull that up and you look at where we're at, you're going to see Jaden Daniels win an MVP in year 2. No big deal.
No NBD, no big deal. I don't like the prediction game. I would rather just have say that Jaden Daniels is going to lead this team to another playoff win. That would be, but if you gun to my head, I'll say north of 3,600 passing yards. I do think the rushing yards is going to go down, probably around 600 yards, but I could see the rushing touchdowns still being a big portion of it, possibly even up to double digits. So I'll say like 10 rushing touchdowns, just utilizing that kind of option RPO type of format in the red zone to
So
really
tough to
put
stop.
pressure on the
Yeah.
defense. Because obviously being very restricted with the back end of the end zone, being an extra defender, having somebody with Jaden Daniels' legs is a huge positive. But like I've said when we drafted Jaden Daniels, making sure that he takes care of his body is rule number 1 for him. And making, obviously everyone held their breath when he scored that touchdown. He's a competitor, of course, but you just want to make sure that he is not putting himself in harm's way, just at risk for one possible touchdown when we don't truly need it. But the running game is where we're really going to take off. Now, the next question that we have is from our guy, James Bonato, who messaged us on Instagram. His question is, I'm not so sure the Parsons trade was so great for us, like I'm hearing from other Commanders fans. We may have to play Green Bay twice, Reed. I thought the Packers were better than the Cowboys before the trade. Now you've made the Cowboys weaker and made a stronger team stronger. That does not benefit us.
Yeah, but not having to go up against Micah twice a year, like this is the only season that would probably happen. It wouldn't happen every year. We're going up against him twice, and plus, I mean, you don't face that on what a team outside of your division is doing. I mean, or yeah, I understand that they're going to be another team. They're younger than us. They've got, but when you got five, you've always got a chance. And yes, it's a good thing. You got to like the way the team's built. I mean, right now the only team we're chasing is the Eagles at this point. That's the only team that matters. They just won the Super Bowl. They won our division. They spanked us in the NFC Championship game there, who we lost to. I like our chances against anybody, even the Eagles, but especially Green Bay going
Yeah,
forward.
and obviously Dallas drafted Donovan Ezeriku from Boston College, who had almost close to 20 sacks last year for Boston College. Not really expecting that kind of production out of Donovan Ezeriku, only if like Dan Quinn and Joe Witt were still running that defense, and that would be a legitimate concern. But I think with fans altogether, James, this is a good thing for the fan base because this is something we can make fun of Cowboys fans about. Like this is so that we can actually, stick the knife in their back a little bit based on. But overall, I understand what you're saying, but I would rather, if I had to face the Packers twice, that's great news for us. That means we're making the playoffs. I'll deal with that. You know what I mean? I don't want to have to deal with Michael on that Dallas defense, even though we have Laramie Tunsil, very confident in Josh Connerly, and you put John Bates to that side and chip him like he did that, with Abdul Carter getting put on his butt. Would love to be able to see that happen, but it does take away a legitimate piece on that defense. And obviously, they're adding more in the run game, which is very, very good for them, beneficial for them. But last I checked, Kenny Clark is not very good at getting sideline to sideline. And that's where you're really going to see Washington's run game develop. So, as much as they're adding into their interior, we might be able to see Washington bludgeon them on the outside. And so, it is sort of a good thing for us because Micah did do a good job at setting the edge at times. But it wasn't always prevalent. But that thought in the back of your head that Micah is not there anymore is a good thing overall for the team. And I'm not going to worry about it on the Packers. Obviously, we are in that Thursday night game. But if it's down the road in playoffs, I'll be willing to take that all day.
Yeah, and especially, I mean, respect to the Cowboys thing. I know Kenny Clark. Kenny Clark's a very good player. Obviously, Kenny Clark's specialty is not the run. It hasn't been for the last few years. So that's why it's kind of funny that they're like, we had to improve our run. I know he will improve their interior defensive line for sure, but like it's not like they're picking up like one of the best run defenders in the NFL. He had like a 61.7 rating or something over the last few years. So it's just funny that that's what they went with. So, all right.
They had to,
Yeah, they didn't have a choice. Yeah, yeah.
they just had to find a way to change that
That's
up.
what I mean. Like they had to be like, all right, we got to do something.
Like Skip Bayless saying he feels better about the defense now than he
Skip
did before.
Bayless.
Like, come on,
Look,
bro.
let me tell you something. I watched every second of that 29-minute video Skip Bayless put out of him talking himself into this trade being good. The guy's got a lot of points. Nobody watched that, Skip. Don't put that out. Nobody sat there and was like, I want to watch 29 minutes of Skip Bayless incoherently ramble as a Homer fan.
Him and Jerry
Nobody
look
cares.
very similar. They look
They
alike.
do look very similar, and I'm telling you, I think that they might have a little thing going on.
Yeah. Now, the next question in the Discord from Tim Towner. Marcus Mariota switched from 18 to number 8, which begs the question, if you see yourself as a player on this team, what position would you play and what number would you have?
Obviously, Kyle wouldn't play tight end. Kyle would play loose end. Not very tight no more. Obviously, look, I know what Kyle's going to say. He's wrong. I'm obviously the quarterback here. I'm calling the shots, and I'm wearing good old number 9. You know what I'm saying? And would I be able to wear it with Washington? They probably no. I know it's retired, but they would look at me and they'd be like, "This guy is the only person worthy of wearing it." So that's probably what I would wear.
No, that's not true. Reed would be the football because being able to be in between Tyler Badass's legs and getting his hands on his butt, he would
Yeah,
love to be in that
yeah.
situation. For me personally, I would, to be realistic, no chance I'm stepping on that football field in any capacity. But
I would die.
in the light of the question, I will say safety rover type and my number 27 all day long. Fred Smoot number. That's my number that I'm rocking, and that's what I'm gonna go with.
Kyle would be Rudy. Kyle would be like Rudy, and then he would just they'd be like, "Here you go, get on the field, son." Wasn't Rudy kind of weird? Because wasn't Rudy like 30 years old
Yeah,
and he was partying with college kids?
yeah. Now, the next question: Who will be by Tim Towner? Who will be MVP? Not counting Jaden Daniels.
Hmm. So, not counting Jaden, I think a good answer could be Laramie Tunsil, but I'm going to go on the other side. I'm going to say I don't know how much. Damn, that is actually kind of tough. I wanted to say Mikey Singer still, but I don't know if you can necessarily be MVP when you're just inside as a nickel back. You know what I mean? Like, so that's so I'll go with Laramie Tunsil. I just think that having a pass blocker like that, I know you can talk about the penalties that had happened. That dude is he's just so good. He's one of the best left tackles in the NFL for a reason. He has been for a long time, and I just think that you're going to see that we're not going to have a third round rookie starting at left tackle. Which shout out to Brandon Coleman, he did a very good job. He's going to be very good in this league, but he's better suited at guard, I think, and being next to one of the best left tackles and centers in the NFL. Laramie Tunsil is going to be huge for Drayton.
Yeah, Mikey would have been a really good selection because he's going to have the ability to get a lot of turnovers there in the secondary. But I will say Trey Amos or Marshawn Lattimore, I think, are in very good positions, not because of their production in terms of turnovers, but just of being able to take away number one options and being able to, each side of the field, being able to do that. I don't want to get ahead of my skis with Trey Amos, but from what we've seen so far in the preseason, when we have seen him, they have when they have gone his way, it's just not possible. And if he could continue that trend going into week one and into this season, we're looking at a young man that could be a huge piece to this defense. That by the time we're hitting at the end of the season, we're going to say his PFF numbers are incredible and no one is throwing his way. And he shouldn't have lasted until the second round, but very happy that he is there. But I'll also throw my the hat into the ring of Austin Eckler. I think Austin Eckler is criminally underrated, and he is going to be a huge piece for what they want to do. Cliff Kingsbury knows how to utilize him. He has a great relationship with Anthony Lynn, and I think that this offense is going to benefit greatly with Austin Eckler getting more touches. It's just making sure that he is healthy is objective number one for him. Last question that we have from Tim Towner. They all can't play. Who will be inactive?
That's a pretty good question. Josh Johnson will be inactive, I would imagine.
Fair.
Because he's a third quarterback, and that's just how it goes. However, I mean, maybe Mariota's still dealing with something. I don't know. So maybe not. They'll dress two quarterbacks. We'll go that way. How many guys are active? I don't even remember.
I think there's like three, maybe up to five inactive. I think.
Yeah.
I think it's 48, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know.
I could definitely. I'm not sure about Luke because with what Lake Lewis is saying, with Jaylin Lane being utilized early and often, definitely expecting him to be used. It begs to question what are they going to do with that wide receiver unit, and it's not like they're going to have every single guy. That's one area. Maybe Chris Paul will be inactive based on what goes on. I'm not sure if he's going to start at guard, if they're going to have Wiley there, right? So we don't.
Another one, maybe one of the four tight ends. I mean, just because usually you don't. I mean,
yank
you
off.
usually shouldn't need four or sit it.
Yeah.
Hey, I was saying just because of the way he's played, but yeah, with the O line, I mean, then you only have three backups if that's the case. But I mean, I guess you can get it with the versatility of Wiley and stuff. I guess you can kind of get away with that. And Allegretti, I mean, being able to play center.
Yeah, he most likely will be the starting guard week one until Cosme returns.
Mm-hmm.
But like that was one thing I circled when they were working him out at center, saying, "Could this be?" That's a great sign to see, and maybe he did impress. Now the next question that we have,
maybe Tyler Owens or somebody like that too. Because how many safeties did they keep? 5.
Yeah,
and
but Tyler
Jeremy
Owens
Reeves
is also a
important.
huge special teams contributor.
That's right. Yeah, but Jeremy Reeves is as well.
Yeah, well, they are on the same unit.
No, yeah, but I'm saying like keeping 5 safeties is a little odd. But I guess they're also versatile, as what like we talked about that. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question.
Him and Percy is a great question. Could also see Kane Medrano possibly not suiting up, being one of those. Most likely Jordan McGee until he gets back into football shape. That's going to probably take some time. Now, the next question is from Deluxe. Do you think the 53 changes between now and game day?
I don't think. I know a lot of people were talking about Kendrick Bourne. Well, he's coming. I think he comes here on what, Tuesday?
Yes, he's in San Francisco on Monday.
And then
Tuesday he's in Washington.
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe we sign somebody like that. Other than that, I think that they would have already signed some people. So, other than possibly Kendrick Bourne, I don't think anybody will be signed as of right now.
Yeah, in regards to game day, I find that very hard to believe. Like, this isn't the time to make major changes. Obviously, you could make the argument about Noah Brown and last year, and obviously they could be doing that with Kendrick Bourne. That could be a change that's attributed, of course. but nothing like crazy. I don't envision. Now the next question, Deluxe: Who gets the most touches at running back week 1? Are 4 active? If not, who sits?
Mm. I'm gonna say who gets the most touches. I'm gonna go with Chris Rodriguez. I
Mm.
know a lot of people aren't gonna like that, but just like what he brings is like a short yardage guy. I know you'd expect also Eckler to be in there with the passing downs and stuff of that nature. He's still going to get some handoffs, but I think that they really like Chris Rodriguez. I think that Dan Quinn really likes him. I think that they can really find ways to use him. He just kind of brings a different element than some of those other backs. Like he's just north south kind of guy. Somebody you can go in there pick up some good yardage. But obviously, I would like to see Bill Crosby, man. I think that he's a stud. I'm just kind of thinking outside the box.
Yeah, and especially with what I talked about with the interior of their defense being so good, you could see them using a lot of the sweep toss kind of way of running the football. And so, with that being said, I do think Austin Eckler is going to be heavily utilized. Could definitely see him being the one with the most touches, but it wouldn't surprise me that Bill is utilized a lot week 1 with his young legs being able to get to the outside, forcing that D line to get tired out by having to chase the young boy around all day long. And that's something that you obviously could utilize because Chris Rodriguez might be in the bad in that regard. Like you could use Chris Rodriguez. We have to consider Thursday night football, and they're going to have that quick turnaround. So they're not going to want to use all their horses week 1 for everyone to be banged up when it comes to Thursday night football. And with them losing Kenny Clark, the Packers, you could see Chris Rodriguez getting a hefty workload Thursday night football against the Packers. So like you could see maybe Chris Rodriguez obviously plays but not utilized very much and use the flip side of that heavily against the Giants of being able to get to the outside with Eckler, with Bill. And I could see McNichols sitting for week 1 for the same reason I just displayed about Thursday night football, where it's going to be the McNichols and C-Rod show for Thursday night football. Now, Reed, we got the week 1 next week against the Giants. Going to be sitting with Andy Burrows, obviously in the 100 section. Andy reached out and asked if I wanted to sit next to him. And so I said, of course, man, because I was originally going to sit in the nosebleeds. But it looks like I'll be in the section 100, sit next to Andy, which is something we have been talking about doing week 1 together for a long time. And we have sat with him, but I'm always away from Andy. First time actually be able to sit with Andy, be able to watch this game. Very excited for it. But what are your predictions on how it's going to go?
First of all, let me just say that he reached out to you and asked you if you'd like to sit with him. That's such a gentleman move. Did he ask your parents first before he asked? Did he
No.
say, Do you mind if I met Kyle come sit next to me at the footy game? Is that what he said? That's funny. Did
No,
he hold a
because
sign up? Did
he
he hold a
gave
sign up?
me
Did it say,
he
Kyle,
gave
will you sit next to me at the game?
so
That's so
the
funny.
whole plan was he gave me his regular season ticket, which is in the
Yeah.
nosebleeds. And his wife and daughter were gonna come and to the game, but they have looked like they're gonna go shopping instead. And so he
Yeah.
was like, "Now that do you want to come sit with me?" I was like, "Of
Hell
course,
yeah.
dude.
Yeah.
Of
That's
course."
sick. Yeah. That's the
Instead of
dream.
sitting by myself up in the nosebleeds, of course I want to come sit
Yeah.
with you in Close 100. So I'll
Yeah.
do that, no doubt.
But what was the predictions for? Ooh, I mean, look, I like the Giants more than most people, not just because I like their defensive line. I really like the defensive line. I mean, he's not going to start, but I do like what they're doing with Jackson Dart. I like Russell Wilson's a good veteran. I love Malik Neighbors. I think that they've got. I think Tyrone Tracy. I liked him when he was coming out. I think he's a very versatile back. That's very good. They still have some pieces on the O line. They're not. I mean, obviously we know that they've struggled there, but I do like the Giants. I do think that they will be better than people think this season. I don't on paper right now and based off of last season and based on what we've seen, I just think that Washington it should be able to win pretty handily. But it's an NFC East game, so you never know. So I'm going to say, am I going final score predictions or just what's going to shake out?
We can do final score predictions.
Okay, I think that Jaden's going to have himself a day. I think it's mainly probably going to early on. There's going to be a lot of passing. Cliff's going to show off, and then you're going to get into a good amount of the run game once we go up a little bit, and you're gonna see some yards that way and just kind of grind out the clock. But Yeah, I'm going to go Washington wins this game. I'm going to say 28 to 21 because of late push. The Giants score a couple touchdowns late.
Yeah, and it doesn't look like they're going to be losing their kicker for this game like it was last year for week 2.
Didn't we beat the Giants last year with straight, like the first time we played them
Yeah,
with
that was week 2.
9 field goals or something?
Yep,
Yeah, that's so
that's absolutely
crazy.
right.
Yeah, it's
And
so funny. Every drive we kicked a field goal. Yeah,
yeah,
we never punted. Yeah.
so this game in particular, it's very hard to gauge NFC East games. But this game in particular is even harder to gauge because of what they've done at quarterback, and they've changed things up. They have a completely new. They've done a complete new makeover of the quarterback position, so you don't know really what to expect. But I would imagine that they are going to be utilizing a lot of their heavy fronts in order to pass the football, like we saw in the preseason with Russell when he threw that deep ball down the field with 7-man protection against a 4-man rush, and they were still able to get over the top. But I think our secondary unit, in particular, coached by Jason Simmons, we're going to be very cognizant of that reality. And I think that that's going to be a struggle for the Giants. The big question is run defense. Are we going to be able to suffocate them and limit things? And especially with gap integrity, I think Russell is going to be able to utilize that kind of gap integrity by because nothing's open downfield that he's going to have to run for first downs. And forcing them to go dink and dunk down the field could be a benefit overall for the defense. I do think it's going to be a more so low scoring type of game because I don't think that the Giants defense is a slouch. I don't think it's going to be easy going by any stretch. They're well built defensively. And so we're going to have to be able, when we have opportunities to score, we're going to have to be able to utilize that and capitalize on it. And I do think running the football, especially in the red zone, is going to be an issue because it's not going to be as easy. They got some big boys up front. They're very good, and being able to move those bodies out of the way when you really need them to is going to be hard. And that's where I could see Jaden Daniels really utilizing his legs to open things up. And that's why I think Debo could come through big for you. I do think we're going to win. I think it's going to be something along the lines of like 24-17. That probably is the more realistic sense. I would love for it to be 40-0, but it's just hard to gauge what the Giants are offering because we haven't seen what they're truly like altogether. They're getting Andrew Thomas back. They're very happy about that. They're confident in their offensive line. But if we're sending extra in pressure, I do wonder how they're going to be able to keep up and stand up, you know?
Yeah.
What do you think of prediction for Von Miller opening game? What do you think he does?
I think that you're going to see Von Miller, I mean, used in obvious passing situations. And I think that he's going to, I would imagine that he's going to, was he going to get to the quarterback necessarily week one? I don't know. I hope so, but I do think he will do a good job kind of wreaking havoc, maybe just rushing Russell Wilson, pushing him into somebody else. And I'm excited for it, man. I'm pumped on the Von Miller side. I think that that's like for what was available and what was out there after the draft. I think that that's the perfect guy, just a veteran. He's somebody who I would have even liked to have brought in, even if we did draft somebody early, like just to mentor them because he's obviously Von Miller. So it's like that. I'm pumped for it. I do still, and this is the old man in me. I do think it's weird to see edge rushers and stuff with their numbers in the 20s, but I don't doesn't really matter. That's just
Prediction for unsung hero.
mm, unsung hero. Let's see, Kyle. I'm gonna go with the guy who I think is honestly is probably gonna win this a lot early on, and that is Javon Kinlaw, just because what
Hmm.
he brings, the size, taking up blockers. There's things that he's gonna do. People are gonna say, well, why do the people will always say that? Why do they spend so much? Javon Kinlaw, but he does little things. He does things, and he's able to do things just with his size and with his athletic ability that not many people in the NFL can do, and that's going to really benefit the guys around him. So he might not show up in the stat sheet every week, but he's going to make a pretty big impact.
I'll say Dorrance Armstrong. I think Dorrance Armstrong will be able to get some pressure and possibly a big time sack or two, be able to help this football team flip the field and do something. In regards to Von Miller, I do think that he's going to have like 2 or 3 quarterback pressures when he does come in the game, kind of using the AK-47 defensive line lineup where you have Dorrance Armstrong in the middle next to Daron Payne or Javon Kinlaw with Frankie Louvu on the outside rushing with Von Miller as well. That's going to cause issues for any offensive line having those speedsters up front. So I think that Von Miller could be I think they're very interested in displaying Vaughn. But in regards to Debo, last one, predictions for Debo week 1.
I think Cliff Kingsbury is going to show off some of the things. We know how creative he is, and we know that he likes to. We saw, I mean, even just on that early on reverse that Debo ran in the preseason, you got to find different ways to get him the ball, and he can get the ball in so many ways that it's Cliff Kingsbury's really going to want to show him out. And he's the one who was getting most of the reps with Jaden during camp, so I think that you're going to see some pretty decent stats for him. I don't know what to expect. I don't know how many rushing yards, how many receiving yards. I mean, I don't know which Debo it's if he's still that guy from a long time ago. I think that he can be. I think that he will be, but I don't know. This is going to be interesting to see, man. We don't know how they can utilize somebody like that. There's not many Debo Samuels in the NFL.
I think Debo with 5 receptions for 52 yards, 4 carries for 30 yards and a touchdown. I think utilize him in the ground game is going to be big for them, especially hitting those outside spots and making sure their DBs have to come up and make a tackle. I think that's going to be absolutely massive. All right, everybody. This exciting time. We're a week away from week 1. I'm excited to go back home to FedEx Field to see the UK boys and our fan family. It's going to be a fantastic time. I cannot wait for next week. Very excited about it. I hope you guys enjoy your Labor Day. And I know I will, not having to be at work. I'm going to enjoy it with my family, of course, and our fantasy draft. We'll see you then. I'm Kyle.
I'm Hall.
And we'll see you guys next week. Most likely on Monday, by the way, because obviously we have the game on Sunday. So I'll probably be driving home after that. Monday, expect the actual podcast to be coming out and recapping the game. All right, everybody. We'll see you then. Have a great, safe week. Enjoy your Labor Day. Be safe. Washington football. What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of the video. Thanks again for all your support. Until next time.